beginning of Masnavi until now that we have covered, what is it that you believe that we could apply to exactly what happened yesterday? Any suggestions?
Well, I just think of the wazir, or the with the Jewish king, and it's like that guy was able to and have them kill each other. Maybe this isn't something to debate today. Like,
yeah, just sorry guys, can you guys mute yourselves? Except let's just do that. Okay, Metin, please unmute yourself again.
Oh yeah. So it's not. Maybe it's not so much about the debate, but it's like the character of Trump and the character of that wazir. I see a lot of overlap in terms of dividing people and all this kind of stuff.
So, okay, that's awesome. So what you're saying is that Sunny, looks like your mic is extremely sensitive. Okay. Yeah, it just echoes and all that. Yeah. So yeah, what's been happening is basically the whole idea of divide and in this case, the conquer is, I guess a shifting position here and there, but it's that. What else? I mean, that's a very good that was a very good observation for sure. Anything else that?
The only problem I have with that analogy is he's not as smart as the Wazir. He's actually is dumb like the lion that was tricked by rabbit.
Well, we're not there yet, so I guess that's we haven't got to the rabbit and the lion. But I think what you want to probably insinuate here is that ego also has a lot to do with it, right? I mean, certainly egos were at display, but perhaps one was much greater than the other in a way. Am I?
Yeah, I mean, I can see that.
Another thing that I want to also kind of touch on is looking at, and this is a kind of a toss-up question if I'm asking it, and don't I don't necessarily know any answer towards it or not. But how did that make you guys feel? I mean, how did you feel as you were watching this?
I actually felt
robbed of an opportunity to actually learn.
So hold on 1 second. I think Sunny was talking.
I'm
sorry. 1 second.
I was just going to say that whatever he did, for the most part, it wasn't unexpected. I was disappointed on how Biden multiple times fell into the trap of his idiocy.
But hold on 1 second. So sorry, I'm not trying to kind of. I don't want to discuss the debate itself. I'm discussing what debate projected to us according to what we have read.
Okay, so I heard your question as how did it make you feel?
Exactly. So right.
So my one word response to that is afraid.
Gotcha.
Scared.
Okay. That makes sense. It was certainly a fear. And Rasul, sorry, I cut you off, but
actually, to be honest with you, on a more tangible level, that was a great debate last night because I can see that Mohsen is seen in the light.
Well, it took 4 years to work on Mohsen for that.
And that debate last night essentially was the nail in the coffin and did it.
Be very honest with you, I am not convinced at all Biden is a good president. We don't have actually. It's bad and worse.
A dog would be better president than Trump. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, but I'm not
Anyway,
settling the dog.
So again, another thing, I mean, Sunny, I think you brought up a great point. Another thing is, I have to tell you, I did watch it. I had promised, and I broke my promise here, and I will admit this. In the Farsi class, I had said, I'm not gonna get tangled up in what happens in this, all of this stuff and so forth. And in this case, I did get tangled up. And so I did watch. But you're right, fear had a lot to do with it. I mean, I felt there was so much weight, which was amazingly heavy. And again, so having said that, I mean, if I were to relate to what we have read so far, we certainly understand and know now that, yeah, words for sure have energies, and these energies, we are a receptor of it. I mean, we constantly are receiving this, and and it affects us. It affects our hearts. It affects our soul. It affects our, we can affect everything. I mean, afterwards, for instance, I was, fear was there, and I was tired. Physically, I was tired. I didn't do anything, but I was just tired of it. So I'm just sharing this with all of you, and as you guys are perhaps looking into, go about, perhaps, applying what's here, applying what Rumi says to our lives is a difficult thing. I mean, yesterday was a great, example of it. We were all affected, and what Rumi tells us is that what's outside should not should not be affecting you inside of your being. You shouldn't allow that to happen. You should be fairly shielded when it comes down to it. And I think we have to apply that, hopefully, in our lives. We just have to. And again, I'm glad that we are candidly talking about it here, because perhaps, I mean, I certainly know that I have a lot to work on. And, we are, all of us are, looking at ways to perhaps, again, application of these lessons is what's important. And that part is for sure something that in the months to come, I would say in the next month, I'm sure this is not going to be, dialing down. It will be, picking back up, and it will continue on going back up. And let's just make sure that we are all, we're certainly on top of it. All right. Last time, just real quick, if I were to do a quick review, we talked about we finished up the king that, the first story, and the vizier and all that. And of course, that's what basically Rumi led us to, which says your heart will lead you to the mystic way. Your body drags you to its cell of clay. So give your heart food from those in accord. Seek fortune from the ones who know their Lord. So basically, we need to. This is something that, again, certainly we make our choices, and I'm going to tell you, yesterday I did make my choice to listen to that debate. So I certainly was not giving any food to my heart. And so naturally, because of the choice that I made, it's just like what Rumi says here, so give your heart food from those in accord. I certainly did not give food to my heart in accordance to, what I believe. And from that position, then I shouldn't be surprised as far as how the rest of this kind of played out and how it made me feel afterwards. And after that, the story, we moved on to the next one, which, is another Jewish king, which, he also came back and tried to get rid of Christians. And in this case, he had built, the way Rumi portrayed him is that he had his idol within him had become so big that he had no more space, and therefore he had to build an idol outside, so that that idol is something that people have to actually worship, or put their faith into. And he asked people to come and bow down to that idol. Before that, he talked about, real quick, as far as the name of Prophet Muhammad being a prophet that has been mentioned in other gospels and holy books. And Rumi emphasizes on the fact that there were mentions and talks of him in the in other holy books and so forth. And of course, he says at the end, his name's a fort that foes can penetrate. Imagine its truthful spirit state, meaning the fact that just obliging by the fact that there is going to be a prophet after Jesus is something that certainly, celebrated and liberated certain people from, their own issues and their own, oh, false beliefs. And he says, imagine if you actually found out exactly, imagine then his truthful spirit state. And then he goes into the story of this other king. And of course, this is what he says: those who establish evil customs still receive each hour a curse which makes them ill. And again, it's all about, what, he's kind of a stepping into the concept of action and reaction in this world. The fact that this world, according to what we do, there is a reaction that would actually come back to us. And he's kind of putting certain groundwork, and he's laying down the groundwork for that. While habits of good don't fade away from wicked men, oppressions what will stay. And of course, we certainly see examples of this. Beyond them, there is another universe. And of course, he goes into a concept of astrology in such way that in astrology, you have, the stars, which have different energies, and, across the board. And the energy of these stars is something that people believe in, and yesterday, last week, I think it was Rasul who was bringing this example that it was customary, and it still is to this day, that people start go to certain individuals and tell them that, yeah, this is what I'm planning on doing, and because of what I'm planning on doing, find me a good time or a good day, so I can actually have a good omen and make sure that what we're doing is going to be a good deed, or it would have a good lasting place. And Rumi then says that beyond these stars that we know, there is another universe, and those stars are not the type of stars that we're used to here. If for ascendants you have one of those, your soul will burn each infidel you seize. And in this case, he's talking about the stars, which are not bounded by any sort of time or place. Everything that we have in our universe, although the universe seems very infinite, the infinite universe that we're in still has got a time and a space. I mean, even when they talk about like the Milky Way as just a galaxy that we live in, Milky Way has a dimension. I mean, however large it is, it still is something that is a approximated dimension of the Milky Way. So, and he has again, there is a reason he keeps bringing these, because he wants us to, and he's doing it so beautifully, because he starts from the small stuff, and then he starts kind of getting our mind to start expanding, and he wants us to keep expanding our mind in such way that eventually he wants us to understand and feel the expansion as well as the unlimited dimension. And I know that's a dichotomy and that's a wrong statement, but unlimited dimension of God. So there's again, he wants us to actually see it that way. And so he says that it's better for us to kind of, if you're trying to seek any sort of energy or any sort of faith or some sort of assistance, we better look at the stars beyond these stars, which is what is at the mercy of the Almighty God. And all floats them on the sea must run its course, but at the end it goes back to its source, like rapid torrents in the peak above, and the human soul returning through their love. So now I think I think we also read this part, if I'm not mistaken. This part is just basically he is talking about the idol that I talked about, and the fact that there was a mother and her child that came up, and the king is asking the mother to actually bow down to the idol, or else I'm gonna throw your child into the fire that I have created. So let's go to the section. It says a child begins to talk from inside the fire. So basically what happens is, let's see what goes on. So this Jew then brought a woman with her child before the idol while the flames grew wild, then grabbed her child and quickly threw in, so she in fear would swap her faith for sin. He wanted her to know, he wanted her now to bow down her head. But then her child cried, "Stop, I'm not dead." So technically what it is that he actually does, he throws the child into, apparently the mother resists, and he does throw the child into the fire. And now the woman is just like, I gotta definitely do something about it, so I'm gonna actually bow down. But now she starts hearing this this voice that says, "Stop, for I'm not dead." And this is now the child talking. "I haven't died. I'm happy. Join me here. It only looks like fire, so have no fear. The fire just blinds you to what's really there. God's mercy, which has come out of thin air. Enter and witness living proof of God. The joy which makes his own elite applaud. Come and see water that's like fire. It's true. A world of fire which seems like water too. And Abraham's well-hidden mysteries. Here he found jasmine and tall cypress trees." Basically, the child starts talking, and real quick, this is the very last verse. If I were to refer to it, it's I believe most of you know this. It is the verse that Abraham once he decides and he makes the choice that he does not want anyone else to help him out. He, as you may know, apparently even Angel Gabriel comes to him and says that as he's falling into the fire, Gabriel comes back and says, "I can help you. I can actually rescue you." And Abraham refuses that as well, because he says that the Almighty God is who is going to rescue me, and I'm just going to wait, or I'm going to be at His mercy. This is basically what apparently in the Quran, it's in Surah Anbiya, the verse 69. It says, "We said, O fire, be thou cool, and say, and a means of safety for Abraham." So most of the translations and the discussions on this ayah emphasizes on the word salaman, or safety, or salamat, or that's what the word is. Basically, what they're saying is that if this word wasn't there, the fire would have been so cold that Abraham would have frozen in it. So Rumi is referring to this now, that and Abraham's well-hidden mysteries. Let me just go back here again. And Abraham's well-hidden mysteries. Here he found jasmine and tall cypress trees. Basically, when he fell to the very bottom of where all the fire looked like it is, it was a garden with flowers, and it just didn't look like anywhere that had fire in it. So, couple of questions, and I really want us to first fully understand this section, because Rumi is starting to touch on a few things here. First thing is, what do you believe that this child is resembling? What is the child symbolism? So it's the child that actually is going into the fire, and the mother is afraid that the child is going to be burned. Your voice is a little low, so if it can be a little louder, that's fantastic, Sunny.
I said, does it mean self, like ourselves?
I'm sorry?
The self, something that we care about the most.
So the self, but what part of the self, or what part of us? Let's again dissect that. Which part is it that he is? You're going to hear from him a little further that he's trying to reassure the mother that, hey, this is really not that bad as you actually think. And remember, ego is the one that keeps preventing us from doing things, because ego and the mind, they believe that they're supposed to protect us.
So it has to be an evolved soul or a righteous heart.
Okay, so it's either an evolved soul or a righteous heart. Okay, fantastic. What else?
Some kind of a self-introspection that the guy is talking to himself, essentially.
So self introspection, and in this self introspection, what is being reviewed or
So self
introspected?
being the mother and the ego is the child that is talking to himself, essentially.
I see. Okay, very good. Got it. All right. Sounds good. All right. Martin, did you want to?
I was just thinking it's like the child has like insight because the child is guiding the mother, and so I feel like it would be similar to the role that the mystic was in the first story we did with the maiden and the goldsmith.
I see. Okay, very good. Awesome. Okay, awesome. All right.
And I feel the child is the heart and the mother is the mind.
I see. Okay, very good. Yeah, because you also mother is the protector. You know, all over. Yeah. Okay, very good. All right, we're gonna go through it. Mahdi, did you want to also give any sort of a? I know you're not on camera. Okay. All right. Mahdi.
I didn't have any feedback on this one. I didn't understand what the child was.
Okay. Let's go forward and maybe then it would
They'll catch it.
it would start showing up. Okay, very good. So and Abraham's well-hidden mysteries. Here he found jasmine and tall cypress trees. When you give birth to me, this is now the child again. He's talking. When you gave birth to me, telling the mother, I saw my tomb. How much I feared I'd fall down your womb. Once born, I fled the confines of that cage to fresh air and bigger and brighter stage. But now that world seems like a womb to me. For in this fire I have found serenity. I've seen a world without a trace of death. All atoms here have Jesus's pure breath. Now, just I want to make sure that the translation is right. What he's saying in here is the world that he sees is a world that's beyond what we have experienced. And another thing that he's going is that the Jesus's breath that he's talking about in here is the fact that if you have the ability to capture or have or exercise with Jesus's breath, that means that you're able to give life. And what he's saying is that I actually see life constantly on a constant basis because I see Jesus's breath in its full form. A world that's dead in form but lives in essence, while that world lives in form with realm of transience. Now, here is another part that Rumi is now trying to establish something with us. So far, what he's saying is that I think all of you guys captured the example that he's using. You all have heard this, by the way, in many of the Western books and motivational talkers and all that. They all talk about the fact that this is actually Wayne Dyer is somebody who had captured all of this so beautifully, and he would talk about this in most of his speeches. One of the things that he says is that This is Wayne Dyer's quote. He says that when we were born into this life, we are very flexible and we cry a lot. And that's because we don't want to leave where we're coming from. We kind of feel and as Rumi brings up, this is Rumi's word, that, you know, yeah, I'm scared as far as where I'm going. But when I've actually arrived, and I'm like, oh, this is really not that bad. So he is setting some trends also with us as far as I'm going to call it evolution, in a way that we are, you know, whether we like it or not, we keep evolving into better worlds. He's using the birth of a human as, you know, as a human is conceived inside the womb and then, you know, is born into this world. He is utilizing that and that symbolism into what happens again for us when we leave this world to go and experience another birth. So literally, he's not looking at this from a death perspective or an end for all. He's looking at every single stage as another beginning. Does that make sense? Okay. So I've seen a world without a trace of death. I mean, this is really important for us to so he doesn't see death, which is a different, I want to say, it's a different perspective into life. It is just completely different perspective into life. It is a world without death. We all fear death. I mean, let's just be completely honest. I mean, and we talked about fear, and we talk about our current times and everything. One of the things that keeps on happening, that, I mean, God forbid anybody who catches COVID, at least at some point, probably at early stages of the pandemic, I think, at least this is what I thought, that if somebody catches COVID, it's now a time bomb starts, and it's 2 weeks. Literally between now and 2 weeks from now, you know whether that person is going to be alive or dead. Okay. So the fear of death is something that, you know, whether we like it or not, it's just constantly instigated into us. Rumi is inviting us to look at it completely different, from a different perspective. And again, I want you guys to fully take in this statement that he says, I've seen a world without a trace of death. This is not really the child. It's really Rumi talking to us as far as what he has observed. All atoms here have Jesus' pure breath. A world that's dead in form, but lives in essence. To us, what we think is living is this life that we are living in it. What we live in right now is an interesting life, because, you know, yeah, we can touch everything, we can see everything, we smell, you know, we taste, we eat, we get hungry and all that. So because our form and our bodies are so much in tune with these desires of our, you know, what should we call it, desires of our of our body, which comes from our ego again. This is what we feel is our livelihood. However, you know, looking at it a little further, or in a different perspective, what we're hearing is that no, this is just perhaps an illusion, or this is just a flip way of looking at what life is, and perhaps what we are doing is not really truly living. So a world that's dead in form but lives in essence. So what we think is dead in form is truly living. So this is important. While that world lives in form, the realm of transience. So basically, what we've got, we think is completely temporary, and it's doomed to be abolished or be done. Enter for every mother that I'm sorry. Enter for every mother has the right. You'll see it. You see it has no flames, through it shines bright. So now again, he's telling the mother that why don't you enter, just because you are a mother. So because you were the one who gave birth to me, because you were the one who actually carried me for 9 months and all that, just come in and figure out and just experience this for yourself, that what you are seeing is not the true essence of what this really is. Enter for all good fortunes found in here. This opportunity will disappear. So he's saying that there is fortune in what you see here. So enter for all good fortunes found in here. This opportunity will disappear. Why is it that you think that he says that this opportunity will disappear? And the reason that he says that is because you will, again, in later times, you will see this. He says that opportunities to us will come, show up, and depending on how we have dealt with our fears and our needs, we will take the opportunity or we will not. And that is why it says that for now it's here, but it may not be here again. This is why do we always say hindsight is always 2020? Why is that? Well, the reason is, the very first reason is the fact that once something is done and you have completely fully understood what the good parts and the bad parts to it was, then you're like, hey, life is good. I should have taken this option, or I should have make this trade, or I should have taken that job offer. But at that moment, you just don't know. And if you just don't know, you don't know. Now in here is, so in order for us to know, we've got to start trusting our hearts. So obviously then this child is, as many of you also refer to it, is, hey, I'm showing you some directions here. Why don't you follow me? So enter for every mother has the right. You'll see it has no flames, through it shines bright. Enter for all good fortunes found in here. This opportunity will disappear. You've seen the might of tyrants who are base. Now come and see the power of God's grace. We have seen the might of tyrants. We saw one yesterday. And he's looking at it. No, I'm serious. It is again, like I said, I'm going to be the first to admit I have to work on me as to knowing that this is not something that's going to dictate my life. But unfortunately, it's hard for us to actually, grasp that and live with it. It's a very liberating thought. Unfortunately, it's hard for us to grasp it. So and here's the deal. We read this expression, God's grace, right? Question is, how much do we truly trust that there is a God's grace? How much do we trust it? So you have seen the might of tyrants who are base, and in this case, base is he's talking about somebody who is extremely low at their level. Now come and see the power of God's grace. His mercy is what makes me now implore. Since drowned in joy, I think of you no more. It's like, listen, I am right now at a position that I will be drowned in joy. And trust me, the joy that I'm going to be drowned in, I'm not going to be thinking of you anymore. I'm going to leave you behind. So I think, yeah, the mother is certainly a resemblance of the mind and the ego. Because once we experience that joy, although it is in that fire, we will leave them behind. Because those are the true things that are going to completely try to, pull us back. Come in and call the other come in and call the other people too. A royal banquet's waiting here for you. Now he's basically saying that, go ahead and, bring others because there is a feast going on here. And in this case, when he's talking about royal banquet, one of the things that's synonym with a royal banquet is the abundance, the fact that it would never end, it would never finish. You want to have lamb shank, it will keep coming for you. I mean, at least that's what I've seen on the movies and all that. But again, it's a royal banquet. It's something that comes from the endless, reserves of the king. So definitely, it is an abundant position of mercy and grace. So come in and call the other peoples too. A royal banquet's waiting here for you. Come in, believers. Our pure faith apart. All other things bring torment to the heart. Enter the flames like moth, which burn their wings. Good fortune blossoms here like endless springs. The word moth is not what Rumi is using. He uses butterfly. So, but again, the translator here, he wants to kind of keep the rhyme also in the same. So he's using moth in a sense, but in a sense that he's saying that just come, because one of the things that's, about butterfly is the fact that butterfly, when he sees a flame on a candle, he can't stop himself. He just gets drawn into it and doesn't really realize that this heat is about to kill him because he's so in love with the light. And he's just saying that, why don't you come this way? I mean, why don't you actually try to experience that, or come in without any sort of, thoughts in your head. Come in, believers. Enter the flame like moth, which, burns their wings. Good fortune blossoms here like endless spring. The child's repeated shouting was so loud, amazement filled the souls of all the crowd. So now he's basically saying that the child was shouting so loudly that everyone else kept hearing. And I think somebody else that, shouts very loudly is Rumi. Rumi has been shouting so loudly about his experience that everybody kind of starts getting drawn into this thing. So the child's repeated shouting was so loud, amazement filled the souls of all the crowd. So selflessly, each one of them in turn jumped in, believing that they wouldn't burn. They lived through love. They didn't drag their feet. All for the one who makes the bitter sweet. The king's assistants weren't long to arrive. To stop them, they said, no one else must die. Now, again, if you look at it from a symbolism perspective, I mean, the story also is saying that, the mother actually jumped, and people who heard the mother also started jumping. And once everybody else jumped, people just looked at, because people also follow other people. So Rumi is also saying that, the first few that actually go this path, there are others that are going to follow, because that's just how everything is. You've got your early majority, and then you've got majority, and then late majority, and then you got the laggers and all that. So he knew about this concept as well. So therefore, he's basically saying that this is how it started. And then what happens is that there's king's assistants weren't long to arrive, so they were alerted. They come to stop people. That Jew turned red, for he now felt ashamed. Regret had left his bitter heart inflamed, because he saw the people's faith increase through self-annihilation. My pronunciation is not good on this word. Anyways, they found peace. Now, you know what that word is. Thank God this evil plot left him disgraced. For Satan even would have been red-faced. What he'd robbed on the face of that crowd now covered his own face like a cloud. So basically saying that, of course, this king was trying to prevent people from, again, achieving their true self and true faith into their origin and where they were coming from, and understanding the God's grace and all that stuff. Now, his plan was, already just basically dead. That one who tore the shirts that we all wore saw his own ripped, ours perfect as before. Now, this is just an example, rhetorical example, that somebody who was trying to prevent us to actually truly wear what is, fit for us and what is going to help us out. Now he was completely shot out of what his own plan was, and he was just left there with shame. So, what do you guys think? Again, so who is the child and who's the mother? Who is the king and his people?
Maybe the king is the ego. The mother is the heart, and the child is the perfected soul.
The mother is the heart and child is the soul. Okay. Okay. Why do you say the mother is the heart?
Because of I guess I'm thinking back to the goldsmith and the girl, and so once the goldsmith was killed, the girl was able to move in the right direction. And then I guess maybe it doesn't hold perfectly, but in a similar way, the mother, once she was guided by the child, she jumped in eagerly.
Right. So again, looking at what the child found and what the child was trying to do with everyone else around, I think the child is the guided soul. I think that the child can be a collection of the heart and the soul, right? But the mother, I think Mohsen said that perfectly. I mean, mother was preventing the child. I mean, as a matter of fact, she was ready to let go as well of her own faith, because she didn't want her child to be at any, she just didn't want her child to be at any danger. She was trying to protect him. So the protecting part is something that, and again, you guys for sure, challenge me on this. The protective part is where it leads me to believe that the mother is the mind and the ego. So
I have a question. Do you put the mind and ego in the same unique criteria, or mind, ego is a part of mind to me and not the complete mind?
So I have been giving mind and the ego their own place.
Yes.
And I just believe that they work together pretty well. I mean, they're very good collaborators. And I think what rules the mind is the ego. And because, you know, if you want to get a little technical on this, I think eventually we're going to get examples of a mind which can be also ruled by the heart. Because at some point, Rumi also, and we're going to get to this as well, and we're going to examine it separately, and we will look at, you know, these parts of our conversations as well. Then that, you know, Rumi tells us that we got to be a little bit forth looking. If you remember, he says, you know, he uses the words marda aqabat bin, or somebody who can look, you know, a little further than now. So he talks about that. So, but for now, as far as, you know, what we know and what we are given, I think, you know, we're basically at this position that these two, the heart and the soul, and the mind and the ego, are just, you know, collaborating together. So another thing that you know, there were a couple other points that I just wanted to make sure that we again review it, and that is the part that you know, the world that we're in. Rumi is trying to tell us that our world is upside down. What we see is not the truth. It is a reality. And the truth is something different. Right? I mean, this is what he said here, right? He said, a world that's dead in form, but lives in essence. So this is what, you know, the child is experiencing. While that world lives in form, the realm of transience. So again, it's all about the form and the essence. And what is the essence? And essence is always the truth behind what we see in form, right? Okay. I think, so this story is not done yet. So we're going to get a little bit further about this. You know, the other part that I also want you guys to think through and look at is the fact that a connected soul or a guided heart is something that would actually eventually bring and draw others into it as well. And others will start following it. As, you know, for instance, what happened with the child himself. Once the child goes in and the mother actually goes in, then, you know, the rest of the people start just following it. So, and again, I mentioned this before, and I'll repeat it again, that, you know, again, it's Rumi had he knew what he was saying, and he knew what he was writing, and he knew what the stories were, and the meaning behind them, and so forth. And he tried his best to not divulge so much, but at the same time give us the breadcrumbs that we needed in order to actually follow his path. And of course, then there are those soldiers in our lives that would prevent us from following these things, by just either preventing us from studying him, or preventing us from doing things. Or, you know, sometimes it's our own mind and ego that actually come back and say, oh, you know what, this is really not helping, or this is not really something that you can apply. It's basically a bunch of fantasy and so forth. I mean, I can give you examples of, and I have said this in my Farsi class, my great-great-grandfather had given a order in his deathbed that my children should not be reading Masnavi. And basically what it was is that he felt that Masnavi was something that's going to hurt, the faith of his children. So this was his deathbed's advice or last will, in a sense. This is serious. I mean, I'm using this as an example because, again, I hope, he may rest in peace. But obviously, what he was saying from what Masnavi was saying was not the true essence of it. Okay, so let's go forward with the next story.
One
yes.
one comment that the story is like it's in the it's alluded to in the Quran as well. The story, the people of the pits. So I remember reading somewhere, like, I don't know if there's a lot of detail. There's not a lot of detail in the Quran, but in one of the tafsirs, it's almost exactly the same story
About a king like this, and
it's like a bunch of people who were believers and they were tempted, and they were thrown into a fire. And there's like, in one of the tafsirs is like a child who could speak and the stuff. So
yeah, if you can find it, that would be great, because it's the same symbolism. I would say I haven't found any specific verses of Quran that it talks about this, but yeah, please bring it on.
Yeah, Surah Al-Buruj. I'll find it for you.
Okay, fantastic. All right, so now a couple other things. I just want to say, the groundworks of certain things are, he's laying it out. The fact of the matter is that he now starts looking at. So it's the heart that gets connected, and again, from the outside it looks like he's in fire, but from the inside and from the truth position, he's actually connected to an abundant beauty and abundant world that just gives all sorts of good and grace. Let's go through the story, and then I think we're going to figure it out afterwards. So it's about how a smirk of that man who pronounced the name of Muhammad mockingly remained fixed on his face. So I think there is a hadith or something that somebody makes fun of Prophet Muhammad's name, and somehow his face stays the same, or with that smirk, and it just doesn't go away or something. Let's see what it says. So he smirked as he read out Prophet's name, then couldn't wipe it off. And so he came to beg Muhammad, Prophet, pardon me. You have such grace, and no truth is mystery. I made fun, then because I was a fool, I should myself have met such ridicule. When God decides to show they're immature, he makes men feel inclined to mock the pure. So you guys got this story. Somebody makes fun of Prophet Muhammad, and then his face kind of stays with the last gesture that he had made or whatever, and now he comes to actually beg for mercy. Now, a couple of things very quickly here. Rumi, in his entire books, at least the ones that I have read, okay, never ever talks about Prophet Muhammad in such way that he was a mean-spirited or war-hungry or blood-hungry person. Unfortunately, the propaganda against Islam is, of course, a lot. And I'm not here to teach Islam. I've told you guys before this and so forth, but I'm not gonna shy away from what is stated from an obvious point of view in Rumi's books, because I firmly believe in what I'm saying here. He never talks about Prophet Muhammad in that way. He just doesn't. Even in this example, what he's trying to actually account for is the grace and the kind-heartedness of Prophet Muhammad. So now he says, when God decides to show they are immature. So in this case, you guys remember that, he was referring to the ayah of the Ma Ramaita Iz Ramaita, the one that said that you weren't the one who threw the arrow. It was us who actually threw it. He's now referring to that kind of concept again. He says, when God decides to show they are immature, he makes men feel inclined to mock the pure. So it's like, even the fact that this guy made fun of Prophet Muhammad, it was actually something that God wanted to show him or to show us. He also hides men's faults, preserves their name by stopping them from giving others blame. And also now he's trying to also refer to the fact that God is also what the expression is satarul uyub, or somebody who actually, hides people's faults. All of us have got faults. If our faults were all, revealed, I mean, my God knows what would happen. So the fact of the matter is that the fact that, our faults are all covered and hidden is also by the grace of God. So when God should wish to help the first decrease, that we must humbly beg him on our knees. So he's basically trying to remind us that everything happens is at the grace and the mercy of God. And even if he actually tells us, or if he actually puts us in a position, which that position may be a little difficult, or he put us in a position that's painful. I mean, right now, visibly, we've got Rasul who's got a pain on his tooth. This is God's gift, man. Believe it or not, just be happy about it. It will go away. And it will go away. I'm not denying science. I'm not saying that, hey, yeah, you have to take the painkillers and all that. But it is definitely something that it's here because of your own good. It just is. So how great it is to cry for, and again, Rumi tells us that, that pain even is a gift and brings you to your knees so that you can actually ask him. Just ask him for something. Ask him to, hey, alleviate my pain. Ask him to heal me faster. Ask him for anything, but be at his mercy and be on your knees. In this case, being on your knees, of course, is a symbolism. And you guys know that, in all religions and sects, when somebody is praying, nobody sits back and crosses their legs with their, cigar pipe, going like that and asking God, hey, why don't you fix me up with something? No. Everybody assumes a position. Isn't that funny? I mean, Muslims, Christians, Jews, Buddhists, Mormons, Baha'is, everybody, they all assume a position. There is a truth to that. There really is. You feel it's funny when I mean, even yourself, I mean, and everyone has got certain ways of approaching things. So either it's with silence, or with this expressions of your body and all that, or with certain words and all that. These things have messages associated with it. So again, Rumi is trying to remind us of this, that, he's like, when God should wish to help us, he wants to help us, but he helps us with this, that we must humbly beg him on our knees. How great it is to cry for just his sake. Now he's now kind of bringing him he wants to bring us to a different level. That, it would be really nice if you can just Be on your knees and ask for things just for his sake, not your own sake. Why is it that you want to talk for his sake? For once, let's get out of ourselves and look outwards towards him, or even look inwards into him, in us. So how great it is to cry for just his sake, and for a heart through love of him to bake. Your tears will end with laughter. Can't you tell? How blessed are those who know this secret well. These are the people who eventually, I mean, people who, in this case, as a matter of fact, he's using the word of people who actually know, or in this case, they have faith that this thing will end in the right way. Again, I'm using Rasul as an example here because he told me that today he may not talk, so I'm talking about him, which is fun. Now, he went to the dentist. Why? Because he knows as he goes through the pain, this pain eventually is gonna end up to be in a better way. I mean, it will end up to be he would be pain free. We all know it. We all have been through the dentist. I mean, I hate doing dental work, and the dental work is the worst type of work and the worst type of pain, because the distance from your nerves, from your teeth to the where you feel the pain is so little. This is why dental pain is the worst type of pain. If you get a pain in your feet, I mean, literally that distance is, it takes away certain harshness of the signal and the pulse that actually goes through our brain. But this one doesn't. It's basically unfiltered. It just goes in and it's sharp. So how great it is to cry for just his sake, and for a heart through love of him to bake. Your tears will end with laughter, can't you tell? How blessed are those who know this secret well. Wherever waters wherever waters flowed, some grass has grown. Wherever tears are wept, God's mercy is shown. Look at the symbolism that he's using. Everywhere that there is water that actually flows through it, you see grass around it. He's like, you want to see God's mercy? Shed some tears. Ask for things with that water. That's just a beautiful symbolism. Actually, in both in Farsi and English, I love I love this. Wherever waters flowed, some grass has grown. Wherever tears are wept, God's mercy is shown. Be like the water wheel. Weep endlessly so that your soul can grow in greenery. Now, he's saying that, the more you keep this up, the better it is for you. So do it endlessly. Have mercy. And you know what's interesting? This is the exercise that Rumi is giving us for our soul. We exercise for our bodies. I mean, I know that there are certain people who have regimens of exercise, right? I walk, I've heard people say this. I walk every day for 40 minutes. I walk on a treadmill for an hour. I lift weights every day. I do this every day. I mean, we do this for our body. It's amazing. Now Rumi is giving us certain exercises for our soul. We need to do that too. Be like water wheel, weep endlessly so that your soul can grow its greenery. Have mercy first if tears are what you seek. To gain God's mercy, pity all the weak. So now he's saying, in order for you to have that true tears, You have to actually have or be, have mercy on others so that God would have mercy on you. Isn't that funny? It's not funny. It's the truth, and it's beautiful. That was a wrong choice of words, sorry. But have mercy first if tears are what you seek, to gain God's mercy, pity all the weak.
You mean ironic.
Say again, please.
You say what you said was ironic, not funny.
It was, yeah. All right. So now, after this story, he kind of gets back to the Jewish king again. So the fire's reproach for the king of the Jews. Now, in this case, now the Jewish king, as his plot didn't work. Now he's a little, wondering as far as what happened here. And okay, so here we go. The king turned to the fire, short-tempered one. He's calling fire short-tempered one. What's going on? Are you not meant to burn? What happened to your special quality? Have your intentions changed by destiny? Fire worshippers, you choose not to forgive. So why let those who don't adore you live? You're not known for your patience. So why now will you not burn? Have you forgotten how? So basically, it's a conversation that the Jewish king is having with the fire, which now in a minute, you guys know why Rumi is bringing it in such dialogue. This world deprives us for our sense of sight. But how can fire not burn? This can't be right. Have spells been cast? Again, the Jewish king is saying this. Have spells been cast? Or is it sorcery? Is this unnatural outcome fate's decree? So basically, it's like, why didn't you burn these people? This is what you do. You are the most impatient. You burn, millions of acres of California forests impatiently. What the hell happened here? So the fire said, I have not changed. Idolater, come in and feel my heat, you murderer. So he told him that, yeah, I haven't changed. If you want to test me, why don't you come in yourself? And you'll see that. My nature and my essence stay the same. As God's own sword, I lash when he takes aim. This is a very, 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 very important position and statement. Rumi is trying to tell us something here. And what he's trying to establish and tell us is the fact that everything in this world has consciousness. And everything in this world does what it does because of God's ask. Does this make sense? Are we all?
Yeah, and the submission of everything in the world.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Mohsen, I didn't quite follow that point. Can you explain what you mean? Everything does what it does because of God's ask, because God asked it to do what it does? Is that what you're saying?
So no, nothing moves. Basically, there's two things that Rumi has been trying to establish for us, and he will continue on that. One is the fact that everything that's in this world is going to be is already worshiping God. Let me quickly bring this ayah. If I can use. So here's an example of the ayah in Quran, which says the Surah Jum'ah. It says, whatever is in the heavens and in the earth doth declare the praises and glory of Allah. The sovereign, the holy one, the exalted in might, the wise. So yusabbihu lillahi ma fi samawati wa ma fil ard al-malik al-quddus al-aziz al-hakim. So basically, this is one thing that Rumi has basically been trying to communicate to us. The other thing that he's trying to tell us here is this, that what happens, everything that happens and everything that we see that is happening is also with the aim and with the wishes of God. If God doesn't want that to happen, it will not happen. Does that make sense? It doesn't make sense, I know. I mean, my question is a little, I think, off. And the reason is that we still haven't seen examples of how Rumi is. I mean, he will establish this for us. He will establish this, and he will. This is where, if you remember, I was talking about the difference between free will and destiny. Where does free will come into play, and where does destiny come into play? How do we distinguish between the two? Do we have free will, or are we all bounded by our destiny? And that's something that, again, in the month to come, we're going to keep on referring back to it, and we're going to talk about it. Matty, does that make sense? Or
Yeah,
what's your
I
question?
think about it a little bit to see.
What part is what part of it is harsh or difficult or ambiguous?
It's more like, okay, if everything happens at God's will, then when do people or things make their own decision, first of all? And then I guess if it's a good or a bad thing, is that when we assign the good or bad meaning to it? Is God just wanting everything good for people, and do we assign the good and bad to it? Or how do we identify or distinguish between when something is, if something that God wanted to happen for something or what someone, was that a good thing or was that a bad thing?
So that's a good question. So I'm going to use a quick example of, were you here at the very beginning of the class when we're talking about the debate?
No, I was 10 minutes late.
Okay. So the debate was, everybody kind of agreed that, the debate was horrible. And Rasul made an interesting point, and he said, I think something good came out of this. And of course, what he meant was that, our friend Mohsen somehow was able to see the truth into how, Donald Trump is. And I agree with that. So to us, and when I say to us, that's not the right statement. To everyone right now, this debate yesterday was horrible. But does that mean that was this all bad? And again, the good and bad, as you said, is that our assignment as what is good and what is bad? Can we change our vision into the fact that everything is good? And this is exactly what Rumi is trying to take us towards, that everything and anything that happens has a purpose, and that purpose is a good purpose. which it's a little difficult for us to get there. And I'm glad you brought this up. This is actually where it is. We are the ones who, because of how we feel and our experiences, we assign the good and the bad to things. We just do. And our experiences create emotions, and our emotions instigate our egos, and our egos tell our mind certain things. And then, again, we kind of go around this hamster wheel constantly. Rumi is trying to break this pattern, and he's coming back and saying that, you know what? First of all, everything and anything that happened, if you wholeheartedly believe that everything and anything that happens because of a reason and a purpose, and that reason and a purpose is good, that's a very, very strong statement. If you totally and wholeheartedly believe this, all of a sudden your view into this entire world changes. I'm not so sure if, I personally, again, I bring myself as an example. I have struggled with that personally. But this is where he's trying to take us. He's trying to push us to that direction. That's why he brings this in, that listen, even a fire that you think it's completely in its nature, because all these lines in here that this king is telling the fire is something that we all believe that is very true about the nature of fire, right? You're not known for your patience. Fire is not going to wait. Once the fire starts, it just burns immediately. That's how we cook, and that's how we also get cooked. This world deprives us. So it goes, you're not known for your patience, so why now? Will you not burn? Have you forgotten how? So again, why is it that you didn't burn those people? So again, this is why he says the answer that fire gives is a very telling answer. And again, Rumi is trying to tell us that yeah, the end, what I'm assigned as far as my nature and my essence is completely the same. Yes, it is there. Okay. However, I'm God's sword. I'm at mercy of God. And if God tells me not to do something, I will not do it. Again, this is a concept. It's a shift. It's a shift in thought. It's a shift in words. It's a shift in sight. It's a shift in ideology. It's a huge shift. But he's, again, just starting to kind of nudge us towards that. So he's using an example now. He says, the Turkmen's dog all linger by his hut. Before each guest, they fawn and whimper. But if they should see a stranger pass one day, they all roar like lions and chase him away. So we all have experienced this. Those of you who actually own a pet or a dog, dogs, if they feel somebody is not close to you, they will roar at him. They would bark at him, and they might chase him to bite their legs or something. So he's trying to tell us, again, using that example, as far as how that dog is at the mercy of his owner. If the owner is not feeling well, the dog is going to be all anxious. He's trying to use that example and that analogy as far as, how everything in this world is connected to God. So now the fire comes back and says, I'm not less than a dog in servanthood, and God controls more than the Turkmens could. If the fire, now, after all of this, Rumi now goes into a different, conversation now. He says, He's talking to us now. If the fire in your nature makes you grieve, remember that it's only by God's leave. Yeah. If the fire in your nature gives you bliss, the Lord of faith has filled your soul with this. These are beautiful lines. So
I'm not getting that the fire in your nature, like the fire. I mean, does it mean like the fires that you experience in your life, or is it about the?
This is more like, when we say the fire inside you, or that driving force inside you.
I see.
So that's the right. By the way, in Farsi he uses the word tab or tabiat, which means nature. So it's our nature, or our current state, in a sense. That's what he's referring to. So if your current state is in such way that it gives you bliss, and that's because it's something that God has put in it. But at the same time, remember, I want to not forget this as well, because he came back and said, wherever water is flown, wherever waters flowed, some grass has grown. Wherever tears are wept, God's mercy is shown. So he's using this analogy to also tell us that what happens inside us is because of what we have done with ourselves. So we do something with us, and that what we do with us projects itself into how we feel. Does that make sense? So if the fire in your nature gives you bliss, the Lord of faith has filled your soul with this. When you feel sorrow, beg forgiveness, friend. He sent grief as a means to a good end. Do you guys think that we can always remember this every time that we feel sorrow? I don't. I know that. Your pain he'll turn to joy, and equally, if he should choose, from fetters you'll be free. So he's like, it's again what you ask of him and what you realize within yourself. And once you realize it, getting rid of it or freeing yourself from it is something that, again, he's like, you have to ask him to do that, or you have to keep on asking for all these blissful feelings that helps you kind of get away from what pins you down. Earth, water, wind, and fire, his faithful slaves, alive with him, to us seem dead as graves. So he's referring to the four elements, and these four elements, Rumi fully believes that he keeps on bringing these in the fact that these are the four elements that everything has been created from, the earthly forms, and either it's earth, water, wind, or fire. And he's saying that they're all his faithful slaves. So basically everything that we see within this world is all about him. Alive with him, to us seem dead as graves. In front of God, flames always stand up straight. That's interesting. It's a very interesting analogy of fire. Fire always goes up. And Rumi is saying that, the flames are always standing up straight in front of God. And with like lovers in a passionate state. And they dance for him. A spark leaps out when iron struck with stone. It travels out by God's command alone. Every time a spark he goes from fire to a spark. He's trying to give us all sorts of dimensions. So a spark is that little, and a fire can be this big, or as big as you make it. And it's saying a spark leaps out when iron struck with stone. It travels out by God's command alone. Don't strike it. Don't strike it with the stone of tyranny. Haha. It multiplies like men relentlessly. So now he's saying, try to, if you're trying to create a spark, and now the spark that he's referring to is this fire in ourselves. He's saying, if you're about to start that spark, don't do it out of tyranny or, taking somebody down or putting somebody in a bad position. Don't do it out of that. Don't strike it with the stone of tyranny. It multiplies like men relentlessly. Why? Because that's what fire does. You give him that initial, thing, and the fire then just keeps on repeating that. Though stone and iron are the cause, you can attempt to look beyond them, noble man. So now he's saying that, yeah, they are the ones who are causing this. However, you look beyond them, look at whoever is created. So again, he then, now trying to take us back to the fact that there is a creator above and beyond what we see. There is a creator above and beyond what we experience. This cause was prompted by a prior one. So how can men assume what it has done? So now he's talking about the cause and effect. So I hope you guys are following this, because this is kind of a heavy subject. So he's going from conversation with the fire, the fact that everything in this world is at God's mercy. However, we are the ones who are given the choice by God. So we start stuff. And as we start stuff now, he's talking about the cause and effect. What we do starts a cause and effect. Or, those of you who have seen that movie, Matrix, that French guy, he calls it causality. I don't know whoever remembers that. But that's the scene that I know. We don't have any ladies here now today. So yeah, guys kind of like Monica Bellucci. That's the scene. So the scene that they introduced Monica Bellucci, that's the guy that, he comes back and says that talks about the scene causality, because cause and effect, things happen right after another. So he says, don't strike it with this stone of tyranny. It multiplies like men relentlessly. Though stone and iron are the cause, you can attempt to look beyond them, noble men. This cause was prompted by prior one. So there was something that you did, and then now this one happens. So how can men assume that it has none? Those causes which decide what prophets do are higher than these causes you can view. Now, he's talking about the causes that we experience here in this life. And here, there are causes that people who are with an elevated soul and a connected soul, and what they experience at that level and at their level. Okay. So I think in the Farsi class we talked about this. There is this poem that he says that somebody is looking at somebody who was murdered, and it says, hey, you the murdered one, who did you kill that right now you are dead? And by the way, the guy who killed you is gonna, eventually kill you. I mean, this is the cause and effect of murder. And guess what? We are now in a world that is full of these cause and effects. They keep on happening. I just right now, right next to my house, apparently it's Azerbaijan's embassy. I saw a bunch of people marching there. I had no idea about this. Apparently there is a war going on between Armenia and Azerbaijan. There you go. Cause and effect.
That's just on a tangent. That's Putin's way of bringing NATO into the picture.
There you go. Cause and effect. So it's interesting that Rumi believes, brings this in, but he's trying to tell us that in order to free ourselves, the best way to look at it, this is why we have to start shifting ourselves. It's a very conscious shift from ourselves into believing the current state and leaving that and believing that what happens is good for us. Just like what, the discussion that I was having with Mehdi earlier. It's a shift. How can we do that shift? God knows it's difficult, and I'm not going to be here sitting here and giving you guys a prescription for it. You guys know all what we need to do. It's just us making that decision and conscious choice to make the shift. And my God, that's tough. Those causes which decide what prophets do, however, because prophets are on a different level, we are trying to elevate to that level. Remember, and again, I'm sorry, but Rumi is going to eventually categorize all souls into 5 different levels. It starts from the souls of the plants, and then it goes to animals. Majority of us are at the animal level. And then it goes to human, or Adam, or Insan, or Adam. Then it goes to angels, and then it goes to Anbiya and Awliya Allah. That is the higher level. You know what's funny? I'm sorry, I keep going on different tangents and so forth, and but I mean, I have to share with you these thoughts as well. The way we struggle with our with our animal side is where majority of our issues are. The rage that we experience, the jealousy, the wants, with the wanting and the needs, and all of these things. These are all things that come to us from an animal form and animal side. We're not even human yet. So those ones can choose. So now he's talking about, again, the prophets and the Anbiya and Awliya. He says those ones can choose to make these take effect or make them fruitless things we all neglect. These causes can be grasped with just your mind, but only prophets know the other kind. Yeah, on a daily basis, what we struggle with is the cause and effect that we experience. We keep experiencing this cause and effect. These causes can be grasped with just your mind, but only prophets know the other kind. What is it, say, a rope in Arabic? Now he's talking about the meaning of a rope, the word rope in Arabic. Okay, saying, what is it called? Hung in the well, so straight it seems a stick. The water wheel spin moves this rope in front. If you can't see this, then you're an ignorant. So he's using another example. He's using a well as a bucket is tied to a string, and the wheel, you turn the wheel and this bucket goes down. and you turn the wheel back up, and the bucket comes out, hopefully with water. He's like, if you cannot see that, how did this bucket go down and come up? If you can't see this wheel that's turning it, then you're an ignorant person. You see the symbolism that he's using now for the existence of God. Basically, the person who turns this wheel is God. Those ones can choose to make these take effect, or make them fruitless things we all neglect. These causes can be grasped with just your mind, but only prophets know the other kind. What is it? Say, a rope in Arabic, hung in a well so straight it seems a stick. The water wheel spin moves this rope in front. If you can't see this, then you are ignorant. Don't say rope like effects seen in this world from heaven's wheel directly have been hurled. So it's like, don't tell me that it's only the rope that's doing this. There's something else. You don't see it, but there's something that's turning it from heavens. Don't be a zero, round just like this wheel. So in this case, he's saying that, let me see, why is he saying, okay. So zero is basically talking about somebody who is lost, not necessarily somebody who is out of, so he's saying that some people are just like zeros. Zeros are stuff that if you add to something or take it out of something, it doesn't make any difference. So he's like, don't be a zero. So don't be a zero, round like this wheel, hollow wood for the fire. Discern what's real. Basically, that's how some people live their lives. The wind can clash with fire by God's decree. Drunk through God's wine, which adds forcity. Water is gentle, fire enraged, my son. Open your eyes, see both come from one. So we think that there is fire and then there's water. And if we pour water on the fire actually is put out. But it's like, no, that's not what happens here. It is put out because of the will of God. Open your eyes, see both come from one. If the wind soul had not been taught by God, how could it tell apart the man of odd? Now, there is a story of this I think group of people, which is called Odd, or Odd, yeah. Which what has happened is they were pretty mean to the prophet, which was assigned to them or was among them. And eventually the prophet is tired of, trying to show these people the light. And what happens is God decides that he's going to, punish them. And what God does is tells this prophet, and I think the prophet's name is Mohsen, do you remember the prophet's name? Saleh, right? I think. So what happens with him is that, God tells him that, put you and your people who are the same believers as you in, gather up amongst yourself and just watch what I'm going to do to everyone else. And wind comes and basically destroys that city, but Saleh and his people are all, untouched. So this is why he's now talking about this, that the wind soul had not been taught by God. how could it tell apart the men of Od? So it's saying that the wind was had a consciousness and understood who to take away and who not to touch. Okay. Had drew a line around his righteous men, unreaching it by wind died down. Hud, I'm sorry, he's talking about the prophet was Hud. I made a mistake. So who drew a line around his righteous men, on reaching it, the wind died down again. So Hud and his people were not touched. But all those standing on the other side were flattened, for wind there did not subside. Just like Shaban, the shepherd, who would draw around his flock a line, all clearly saw. Another story is also a story of a shepherd whose name was Shaban. And Shaban, one of the thing that he used to do is that he was a shepherd, but in order to join Friday prayers, he would draw a line around his, flock of sheep, and the sheep would not cross the line, and the wolves would not attack the sheep beyond that line because they all sensed what that line was. So when he left on Fridays for the prayer, no wolf would ever harm the sheep in there. While wolves dared not ignore the shepherd's sign, no sheep would ever step across this line. The grunts of greed from both the wolves and sheep were silenced by the circle of his keep. Again, he's talking about the whole nature of what these animals wanted to do. The sheep wanted to get out of the line, and the wolves wanted to attack the sheep, but they all stayed in their own space because of what that was ordered to them. For mystics, too, the wind that signals death, like Joseph sent, seems soft, refreshing breath. Now, he's now going back into the basically talking about the story of Joseph and um, Joseph and Jacob, the fact that his scent was able to bring refreshing breath and eyesight to Jacob. And Abraham from fire felt no alarm. God chosen prophet bonfire couldn't harm. The faithful can't be burnt by fire of lust, though it reduces men to less than dust. On God's command, the fierce waves in the sea could still tell Moses from his enemy. When orders came, the earth dragged Korah down. Now he's talking about this is he's using all sorts of examples at the moment, and in this case, the Korah is a fictional is not a fictional character, but is somebody who has been named in the Quran. His name and it's been named not Korah, it's been Qarun. So this guy was very wealthy. He had a lot of money, and once he was asked to actually give away his money for charity or for helping others, he said that I made my own money and I'm not going to give it away. So basically, the earth swallowed his own, all of his treasures and belongings. So in this case, he's talking about when orders came, the earth dragged Korah down into its depth despite its throne and crown. That's what happened to him. Jesus' breath made water mixed with clay, grew wings, become a bird and fly away. Your praise is not hot air, but will appear, a bird of heaven, if your heart's sincere. Did you guys get that? He told us all of this. And now he's also telling us that if your heart is sincere and if your breath is sincere breath, you can also give life. Moses' light made Sinai dance and spin, becoming thus a dervish free of sin. Mountains can change to dervishes each day. Moses' body used to be mere clay. So basically, he gave us the whole, belief as to the fact that everything is at the will of God. However, you also can connect to that level of authority and that level of power and abundance and do things that you think it's impossible. However, all of them is possible by the will of God. Okay, I think we better stop here. Any questions? Anna, I have a question for you. Anna.
Yes.
Okay, hi.
Hi.
So you don't talk to us, which, I hope that one day you talk to us. But I'm going to ask a question. So far, what have you grasped out of all this? Does this resonate with anything?
Yes, it's very deep and it's very kind of difficult for me, but I get a lot of this, whatever you say. I guess I can know maybe express myself, but I feel like I really enjoy the class, and believe it or not, I don't talk too much, but I don't know. For many years, I'm reading a lot of books about spirituality, and not Rumi, because Rumi is a little difficult for me. But I really, really enjoy the class. Sometimes I get lost, but
You're not the only one, Anna. We get lost
yeah,
too.
Yeah.
it's very, very, very
It's
deep.
difficult.
I appreciate thank you for telling us your thoughts. I'm hoping that you would just jump in any area that you feel like, hey, it seems like, because believe it or not, all of us are in the same boat.
Actually,
I keep telling you that I am actually the bigger, fault around. It's around me. I read this stuff and I repeat these stuff, and sometimes I'm lost. So,
actually, I read a lot of Dr. Wayne books.
Dr. Wayne
A
Dyer.
lot of them, yes.
Yeah. And do you see Rumi's stuff in his books?
Exactly. I
Yeah.
guess it's
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, I appreciate you being.
thank you for asking. I'm here. I feel I'm silent, but I'm
know,
really aware. And
it's I don't know. I just do that once in a while. So
plus, I have an accent, and I believe that
we all have accents.
everybody in the class is very fluent. So,
Oh gosh.
but I don't have an accent to understand the class. It's just to speak. But I really enjoy the class.
Thank you. Again, we're all in the same boat, so please don't be shy.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Anything else? All right. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll see you guys next week.
All right. Have a good night,
Thank you.
everybody.
Good night, everyone. Salam.
See you guys.